What if I told you that procrastination isn't some kind of character flaw, that it has absolutely nothing to do with willpower? Well, today we're going to completely reframe how you think about it. We're going to dive into the brain chemistry behind why we put things off and explore a really powerful idea called vesicle training.
For years, we've all been told the same story, right? Procrastination is a moral failing. If you just had more discipline, you'd get things done. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? What if the real reason isn't about your character at all, but about your brain's chemistry?
So here's the big idea from the source material for this explainer. Procrastination isn't a failure of will. It's a biological symptom. It's the state of dopamine burnout, where your brain's motivation system is literally running on empty. And the culprit? Well, it's something that surrounds all of us every single day.
Okay, so what in the world is dopamine burnout? To really get it, we've got to look at how our modern world is constantly feeding our brain a diet of what you could call cheap rewards.
Just think about it for a second. That little ping from a notification, the endless scroll on your social media feed, the quick hit of a news alert. These are all super easy, low-effort ways to get a little jolt of dopamine. But when our brain gets used to this constant drip of cheap rewards, it starts to resist doing anything that takes real, sustained effort. And this creates a really nasty cycle. You feel paralyzed by a big task, so you reach for a cheap reward, which only makes that big task seem even bigger. That feeling? That's procrastination.
So how does this whole loop actually work inside our heads? Let's zoom way in. Your brain cells, your neurons, they don't actually touch each other. There's this tiny little gap between them called a synapse. Now, for a message, like say, hey, let's get motivated, to get across that gap, it needs a little chemical messenger. And those messengers are carried by the stars of our show today, vesicles. The easiest way to think of them is like tiny little delivery trucks. They load up with dopamine, drive it across that synaptic gap, and when they get to the other side, boom, they release it and the motivation signal gets delivered. The number of these little trucks you have ready to go is absolutely crucial for your focus.
Okay, now this is where things get really interesting. It turns out that not all dopamine is created equal. There are two totally different ways our brain gets this stuff, and understanding the difference is the absolute key to finally breaking that cycle of procrastination.
So, on one hand, you've got what's called phasic dopamine. Think of this like a roller coaster. You get a huge, sharp spike up, followed by a sudden crash. This is what you get from those cheap rewards we talked about. It completely empties out your vesicles, and it leaves you feeling drained. But on the other hand, you have tonic dopamine. This is more like a steady, stable climb. It's a low-level flow of motivation that you get from sustained, meaningful effort. It's not a huge rush, but it's what creates real, lasting drive.
So here's the punchline. That feeling of being stuck, of not even being able to start something, that's your brain trapped in that phasic spike and crash cycle. It's been trained to expect these quick, intense hits of dopamine, so the idea of the slow, steady effort needed for tonic flow just feels blah. It's like your brain is holding out for a cheap hit of candy instead of a nutritious meal.
All right, so how do we break out of this trap? Well, the source material gives us a path forward. It's a way to consciously retrain your brain's entire reward system, and it's called vesicle training. Vesicle training is pretty much what it sounds like. It's a workout, but for your brain's motivation system. It's the intentional process of teaching your brain to stop craving those crazy volatile spikes and instead learn how to run on that steady, sustainable tonic flow. This is how you take back control of your focus. Now, I know retraining your brain might sound a little complicated, but the process is actually surprisingly simple. It's all about making small, intentional tweaks to your daily habits. Let's break down exactly how to do it. So it really just boils down to 3 steps. First, you have to identify your triggers. What are the cheap rewards you automatically reach for? Second, you have to intentionally cut back on those dopamine spikes. Turn off the notifications, put your phone in another room. Then third, and this is the magic part, you actively start building tonic flow by just starting the hard task. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, that little bit of effort starts to generate the very tonic dopamine you need to keep yourself going.
And let's be super clear here. This isn't about depriving yourself of joy or turning into some kind of productivity robot. Not at all. It's about being strategic. It's about trading the neurological version of junk food for a healthy, sustainable source of energy. You're shifting from a system that is designed to burn you out to one that actually builds you up.
So I'll leave you with a question to think about. What is one small, cheap reward that you lean on all the time,
And what could you gain by trading that fleeting little spike for the deep, lasting satisfaction of tonic flow? Because remember, the power to change your motivation, it isn't found in your willpower, it's in your vesicles.